So what are we doing in this game, MJD?
I'm going to beware, and I'm not saying don't start him, but A.J. Brown, you don't have a running game. You're going to probably have Jalen Ramsey covering you. We don't know if Julio Jones is ready to play. I mean, to me, it just seems like there's a lot going on. And then your quarterback, if he does drop back, he's an average quarterback in the National Football League, ranked 16th. But when you have play action pass, he's ranked first. So to me, it just seems like it's a lot of negativity running around A.J. Brown right now.
I say you don't be negative. You start Robert Woods, and the negativity, the disappointment is just overblown. The last 4 weeks, he's averaging 18 points a game. The Titans defense, the absolute worst against wideouts in all of fantasy football. I think it's a slam dunk start for most of the Ramley. I especially think you start Mr. Trees. Let's go to the Packers and the Chiefs. Jordan Love will start for Green Bay, as we all know now, Marcus. What about the other quarterback in this game?
I'm going to say beware Patrick Mahomes. I know. Look, and I don't want people coming at me and telling me that they're going to sit Mahomes for like Trevor Siemian. Don't get crazy here, because you don't have anybody that has as high of a ceiling, but let's keep it real. Picks in 7 straight games, 12 total giveaways in that stretch, 1 300-yard game since week 2, 2 or fewer touchdown passes in 4 straight games, and now facing a Packers defense that's giving up the 8th fewest fantasy points per game to quarterbacks over the last 4 weeks. Look, Patrick Mahomes still is supremely talented. This is still a good offense. I'm just telling you, I have concerns based on what we've seen in this recent slump.
Yeah, sounds like we could get Odell there. It'll be good for everyone. That's where I'm hoping he ends up. I think on the other side of it, you could start A.J. Dillon here. He had 16 carries last week. He has at least 10 and at least 50 rushing yards in 3 of his last 5. And with Aaron Rodgers out, I don't think the Packers are going to ask Jordan Love to throw a whole bunch, which means more running. And the Chiefs have given up 10 rushing touchdowns in 8 games this season. So Quadzilla has a good chance of finding the end zone as well.
Yeah, you can't hurry Love. You just have to wait. Denver and Dallas, the return, we think, of Dak Prescott, MJD.
Yeah, and if Dak Prescott returns, this is a must start for me. I'm going to take the low-hanging fruit here. He's just flat out balling when he plays, so you might as well play him. Denver trades away Von Miller so that you don't expect the pass rush to be as intense. I think they may be too much for the Broncos to handle.
Speaking of the Broncos, I'm going to say you're going to want to sit Javonte Williams here. The game flow might not favor either him or Melvin Gordon. Between the two of them, they've got less than 10 catches on third down combined this season. The Cowboys, one of the top 10 defenses against running backs. You saw what they did to Minnesota's backfield on Sunday night. I say you sit Javonte Williams. Let's go to the Battle of Ohio. Cleveland at Cincinnati. Marcus, what are we doing?
Nick Chubb is an absolute must start this week. Part of it is about the matchup. The Bengals have given up the 5th most fantasy points per game to running backs over the last 4 weeks. Part of it is just about this Browns offense right now. They are not throwing the ball effectively, fewer than 250 passing yards in 5 of 7 games. Plus, they may want to just try to run the football just to keep Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense on the sidelines. The Bengals, the 7th ranked pass attack right now in the NFL.
Speaking of that Bengals pass attack, I think you could start Joe Burrow this week. He is the only quarterback with multiple passing touchdowns in every game this season, and the Browns are giving up an average of over 2 passing touchdowns per game. He has over 20 fantasy points in 3 straight, only twice below 18, so he brings a safe floor. But I think this is a week where he could showcase his ceiling as the Browns give up the 6th most fantasy points to quarterbacks.
We're back on Fantasy Live with another round of Sunday showdowns. We got a couple of very started quarterbacks, the 6th and 8th most started quarterbacks in NFL.com leagues between the Chargers and the Eagles. But Marcus, we're looking at a different position here.
Yeah, I think you're going to start Dallas Goedert in this one. I mean, look, the tight end position is no longer a competition there in Philadelphia. Zach Ertz is now in Arizona. And in the couple of games that Ertz has not been there, we've seen Goddard get more opportunities, about a target and a half extra per game, about 30 more receiving yards per game. He's had 70 or more receiving yards in his last 2 contests. And the Chargers have had problems against the position. 3rd most FPA to tight ends this season. I think with so many issues at wide receiver for Philadelphia, I think Jalen Hurts is going to look for his tight end early and often in this one.
Well, Marcus, do you know who has the 4th most FPA to tight ends? That would be
the Eagles.
The Philadelphia Eagles. So I say you start Jared Cook. Again, bad against tight ends. We saw O.J. Howard go off against this Eagles team a few weeks ago. And man, is this coming at a good time because Justin Herbert and the Bolts offense has been struggling a bit. So I think there's plenty of opportunities for Jared Cook against this Eagles team. Let's go to the Falcons and the Saints. Trev under center for New Orleans, Florio.
Deep sleeper here, Tajay Sharp, I think. He tied for the team lead last week in targets and catches. He led the Falcons in receiving yards. He has at least 5 targets in both games that Calvin Ridley has been out, and he topped 9 fantasy points in each of those. We're hoping everything is okay for Calvin Ridley, and he quickly comes back to play football. But in his absence, 10 targets per game up for grabs, so volume will be there for Sharp as well.
Maybe he's a deep sleeper, but I think the guy that you're sitting is going to be Mike Davis. I mean, you saw the question that I got red lighted on between Mike Davis and Adrian Peterson. I just don't like the matchup, first of all. You see it on the screen there. New Orleans giving up the second fewest rushing yards per game to running backs. On top of that, it's just been the Cordero Patterson show in the Atlanta backfield. He's the guy who's making the plays and getting the opportunities. It just doesn't seem like you're going to get enough from Mike Davis to feel confident starting it.
Let's go to the Vikings and the Ravens. MJD, you and I are both digging this next sleeper pick.
Yeah, I'm going to go sleeper Rashad Bateman. And this is the thing, as the Baltimore Ravens continue to throw the ball and the more he gets comfortable in this passing, he's going to get more targets. And the last couple weeks, he's had 6+ targets, I think. And so as he's going, he's going to get better. And so for me, this is their first round pick. They drafted him for a reason. He will continue to grow. I think it's a great match for him to break out in.
And his coach, John Harbaugh, said despite the fact that he missed practice and questionable, they feel good about him. I say you start Tyler Conklin in this game. Remember what we said about the Chargers and Eagles struggling against tight ends? Well, the Baltimore Ravens are the stone-cold worst in the NFL against tight ends in terms of fantasy points allowed, and Conklin is playing around 80% of the snaps every week. He might just fall into 12 points Sunday against the team that struggles against tight ends. What are we doing, Florio?
I think you start the starting running backs here, and that's it. Maybe DJ Moore, but he's meh. Damian Harris has been a top 10 fantasy running back since week 6, averaging nearly 20 fantasy points per game. And then Chuba Hubbard or Christian McCaffrey, whichever back starts there. Even if McCaffrey's on a limited workload, I mean, he gets 30 touches a game, so limited is what? 10 carries, 5 catches, something like that? I would start him if he plays.
So obviously you don't really have a lot of faith in either of the quarterbacks or any of the wide receivers, really, which means you can start the Patriots defense in this one. They are actually the number 6 ranked fantasy defense on the season, potentially facing PJ Walker at quarterback. We talked about Christian McCaffrey. He may play. If he does, he's got a limited role. Basically, things have been going south for the Panthers since that 3-0 start, and I think this is a chance for Bill Belichick's defense to kind of take advantage of that.
We go to the NFC West, the Cardinals and the 49ers. A lot of injury questions that are just unanswered, Marcus.
There are, which is why I've got Rondale Moore as a sleeper this week. I mean, you've got DeAndre Hopkins. We talked about him at the top of the show being a game-time decision. A.J. Green's been put on the COVID list. Doesn't look like he's going to be available for this week. They've got to go somewhere with the football. Plus, I just like the fact that they found a way to really manufacture opportunities for Moore. He has more total touches than any other Cardinals wide receiver, and I think they may have to lean on him, especially in the passing game this week.
As much as this hurts me, because I'm a different fan than this team, this is a must start for me. This is about fantasy. Must start Elijah Mitchell. When he's playing, they're running the ball. That's what they want to do. He's the go-to guy. As you see, 100 rush yards and a TD in 2 straight games. To me, this is what the Niners want to be. And I think that he's going to have a great game against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, understand this. I'm saying this, but also saying I don't like the Niners. So I just like Elijah Mitchell and what he does for people in fantasy.
Important to note that caveat. Maurice does not like the Niners. Let's go over to Jacksonville, where the Jags play host to the Bills, Marcus, and you got a must start.
Must start the Bills defense. And you heard Florio talk about them a little bit earlier. He had the Bills defense in his DFS lineup, and I like them for the same reasons. The fact that they are the top scoring fantasy defense so far this season, going against an offense that just has not been able to consistently figure things out. It's not going to help if James Robinson doesn't play, because that is one big weapon that's going to be out of the offense. So this is a chance for the Bills, I think, especially if they take a big lead, which I expect. They can pin their ears back. That pass rush can come after Trevor Lawrence, and maybe they can pick up some sacks and turnovers that way.
I agree. Those things will happen. The Bills will smother the Jags and the Jags wideouts like they did the Finns a week ago, but Trevor's not going to stop throwing the ball. He was put on this earth to be aggressive and throw the football deep. What are they going to do, bench him? And he's going to target Marvin Jones a lot, and purely on volume alone, Marvin Jones will get some chances and opportunities against the Bills. It might not be pretty. It might be in garbage time, but those points, They count. Nobody can take them away, even if there's a stat correction, which sometimes that burns people. So let's keep it in the division here with the Houston Texans visiting the Miami Dolphins. What are we doing with this particular matchup, Mr. Florio?
I think you should be starting Tua Tagovailoa in this one. He has shown us that he has a pretty safe floor and that he could take advantage of good matchups, which is exactly what this is. The Houston Texans have allowed a top 10 quarterback in 2 straight games, and since week 6, Tua's averaging 21 fantasy points per game, which is the QB7 over that span. So I think especially this week, given all the stuff with quarterbacks up in the air, start Tua.
Yeah, guys, for me, it's going to be the Miami Dolphins defense is a must start. And it's not, look, Tyrod Taylor's going to be there. That's awesome. But their offensive line is just demolished with injuries, right? So you're going to get a ton of sacks, a ton of pressure. It's going to force Tyrod to have to get the ball out quick or hold it and get hit. And so for me, I just love this matchup for the Miami Dolphins.
All right, let's wrap up our list of showdowns. Last but not least, the Raiders and the Giants. Marcus, give us a start.
Let's start Josh Jacobs, and hopefully he's had some time to rest. I know he was dealing with an injury just before the bye, has had some time off. Let's hope he's been able to get a little bit healthy. He's been fairly consistent, though, over the last few games. 15 or more fantasy points in 3 straight games. He's had a rushing touchdown in 3 straight games as well. The Giants, not particularly great against the running back position, 7th most fantasy points per game to running backs in 2021. This feels like an opportunity for the Raiders to come out, establish the run, get Josh Jacobs going.
I say on the other side, you sit Daniel Jones. The Las Vegas Raiders have the #1 pressure percentage against quarterbacks in the entire NFL. And Mr. Dimes has a 72 passer rating in the past 4 games. Not feeling great about Daniel Jones against the Raiders. I say you sit him.